ॐ त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव सर्वं मम देवदेव श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तिसुदेशिकेन्द्रं द्वैपायनं सूत्रकृतं मुनीन्द्रं श्रीशङ्करं भाष्यकृतं यतीन्द्रं मद्देशिकञ्चापि नमामि विद्यै। ॐ नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्मविद्यासम्प्रदायकर्तृभ्यो वंशऋषिभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः। सर्वोपप्लवरहितप्रज्ञानगणः प्रत्यगर्तो ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि। ॐ प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। Pranams everyone. So last class we completed chapter 16. So far in this Gita journey we had done chapter 13, those 5 slokas where Bhagavan talked about some of the good qualities under the title of Jnanam. In Kshetram Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga chapter 13 we saw between 7 to 11 those 5 slokas in which Bhagavan talked about the values that one must possess to be able to attain this jnanam. Then after doing that 13th chapter, those 5 slokas, we moved to 16th chapter. In 16th chapter it is about Daiva Asura Sampat, the good and the bad qualities. And in this chapter Bhagavan speaks about only the values, the good qualities and the bad qualities, the whole of 16th chapter. He talks about, and this class we will do a quick summary of the 16th chapter. So he talks about what we should have as values, or if we don't have, what we should attain, what attitude should we get, all those things, or what attitude should we possess when dealing with others, when dealing with this world. All these were spoken under the umbrella of Daivi Sampat or Daiva Sampat. These are the qualities that we should aspire for. These are the qualities that we should take effort to attain. And we should be putting some effort, one for gaining, and a similar effort is also needed for us to forsake, for us to leave, for us to give up certain other characters. Those characteristics or those attitude, those emotions or those behavior that should be forsake, that should be left out, that should be given up. Those things are discussed by Bhagavan under the umbrella or title of Asuri Sampat. So remember Daiva Sampat, Bhagavan had also given some Daiva Sampat in chapter 13 under the title of Jnanam. There he had given 20 values. And just as a continuation, we should take these other values that were given under this chapter under Daiva Sampat. Now the question is, why do we need these good values? See, one of the key things is we all look for happiness. We all look for sukham. Even to attain Manushya Sukham, there is, as I said in the last class, there is a difference between Manushya Sukham and Mirga Sukham. even to get this Manushya Sukham, only if we have these values, we will be able to really appreciate Manushya Sukham. So only if we have these gunas, we will be able to enjoy our life properly. So let alone moksha, leave moksha alone, even to have a good quality of life where we are able to enjoy what life has to offer us, one needs to have these gunas. To attain animalistic pleasure, we don't need a human body. Even an animal body is good enough for that. But having attained this human body, we should strive, we should make effort to be able to attain that level of happiness that this body can actually enjoy. And for that, we should have or imbibe all these values. Otherwise, we are wasting our human body, we are wasting this life. We are not making full use of this human body that has been given to us. So what are these human pleasures that we are talking about? The joy that comes out of tyaga, for example, the sacrifice that we do, the joy that comes out of that, the joy that comes out of unconditional love, the joy that comes out of forgiveness. These can be enjoyed only by humans. Therefore, Daiva Sampat or the positive gunas can give us substantial mental happiness and peace. Forget moksha. By having Daiva Sampat, we are halfway through there. We will be able to attain, if not the level of happiness that moksha can give us, a substantial amount of happiness or peace within this body itself. Secondly, why do we need these gunas? These gunas are a prerequisite or a condition for us to be aspiring for moksha. If we have to understand the Vedantic teachings, then these gunas have to be our personality. These gunas will have to be our mental makeup. We need these gunas to be fully entrenched in us. Only then, only if it becomes a part of our personality, we will be able to get this jnanam of Jiva Brahma Aikya. That's the second reason. So the first reason is, why do we need to have these good values? One, to enjoy human pleasure, to really make use of this body and make the full use of the body and enjoy what this body can aspire for. The second is, it is a prerequisite or a condition for moksha. Thirdly, even if we get this jnana, even if we are able to understand Jiva Brahma Aikyam, as in be able to accept it, understand it in our day-to-day happenings. For that jnanam to settle down, for us to become a jnana nishta, these gunas are imperative. These gunas are must. So these are the three reasons why we should have these gunas. What needs to be given up? Of course, Asuri Sampat, all the bad qualities. So going into this chapter, in the first 3 shlokas, Bhagavan had listed down all the Daiva Sampat. In fact, he had listed out 26 of them. A lot of those were actually already discussed in chapter 13. So whatever we had seen in chapter 13, we had reviewed them, and whatever there were new, we actually sort of analyzed them in detail in the last few classes. Bhagavan basically started with the sloka called Abhayam Sattva Samshuddhihi. He started saying to not fear is a Daivi Sampat, is a Daiva Sampat, is a good quality. That's how he started this chapter. And in the fourth sloka, we are not going to go into the detail of the Daiva Sampat. We have analyzed them in detail. We had also did a summary for chapter 13. Most of them are repeated, so we will not go there. But if you see Abhayam, Sattva Samshuddhihi, Jnana Yoga, Dhanam, Damaha, Yajnaha, Swadhyaya, Tapas, Arjavam, these are the few qualities that he said. Then in the fourth shloka, what he did was, he gave some gunas pertaining to Asura Sampat. They were actually basically a summary of all the Asura gunas. He gave a few of them: Dambaha, Darpaha, Abhimanaha, Krodhaha, Parushyam. And then in the fifth shloka, he said, he gave the outcome of these two sampats. What happens to a person if he has Daiva Sampat? What happens to a person if he has Asura Sampat? And he said, Daivi Sampat Vimokshaya Nibandhaya Asuri Mata. He said, Daivi Sampat Vimokshaya. Daivi Sampat will liberate you. Moksha will give you, moksha will liberate you. While Asuri Sampat will lead to bondage, will bind us to bondage, will bind us to samsara. Nibandhaya, bandham, bondage. So Asuri Sampat will bind us or retain us in samsara. And then he basically motivated Arjuna to say that you are born with Daivi Sampat, Arjuna, don't worry. Do not worry. You are already born with Daivi Sampat gunas. So far in Bhagavad Gita, until this 16th chapter, this particular verse, Bhagavan had not talked about any of the bad qualities or bad gunas. But in this chapter, from 6th sloka onwards, until 21st, he started listing out all the issues of the Asura gunas. And so he gave quite a bit of importance for Asura gunas. Why is that so? Because attaining good gunas, we will have to make an effort. We will have to locate it, we will have to imbibe them, we will have to make an effort to attain all these good gunas. Whereas Asura gunas, we don't need to do anything. For the bad gunas, it will easily find us. We don't need to make an effort itself. We will automatically attain the bad gunas. Therefore, the Asura gunas will have to be very careful, because if we are a little complacent, we will be getting these Asura gunas quickly. Just like as an example, if we want to grow a plant, we need to take effort for it. We will have to find a right soil, we'll have to then seed it, then we'll have to water it regularly, then we'll have to ensure that there are no pests, birds coming in and perching. We'll have to put some manure. So we'll have to put an effort to grow a good plant. But in the same soil, if we want some weed to grow, then what do we need to do? We don't need to do anything. We just let it be for some days. We don't need to water it. We don't need to save it. We don't need to save it from any of the birds or pests. Nothing. The weeds will grow high in no time. The same way, if we let our swabhava drive our life, if we let our desires drive our life, the bad gunas will automatically come. We don't need to take any effort. Therefore, we'll have to be extra careful with asura gunas. So, even in this summary, we will see some of the asura gunas. We will list out all of them. Just like we had made a 20 and 26 list of Daivi Sampat in chapter 13 and 16 respectively. Now, here also asura gunas, some of them were repeated. But if we go through this from 6th to 21st, or maybe even from 4th to 21, there are, if we see, there are about 14 of them, asura gunas. So we will list out and go, speak a couple of words or discuss a couple of points on each of those asura gunas. And why are we listing? Not for imbibing these gunas. Remember, it is not for imbibing. It is not for also identifying who has these gunas. Once we are able to identify the root of these gunas, we would go around and look for who has these problems or who has these issues. That should not be the case. This is not for judging others. Forget it should not be also, even if we have these gunas, it is not for getting worried. It is not for getting worried that I have these gunas. These gunas are with all of us. We all have these gunas. Even if it may not appear superficially, from the looks of it, we might feel that I do not have these gunas. But if we go a little deep into our personality, we will be able to identify these. Why do we list it? Why are we discussing it? For us to identify this within ourselves and take every effort to remove them from our system. So these are the asura gunas. So we'll go one by one. The first one, Ajnanam. Ajnanam. The first three are important because the first three are the main asura gunas. First one is Ajnanam. Ajnanam means we know ignorance. What kind of ignorance? It is not the Atma Anatma Ajnana. We are not talking about Atma and what is Atma, what is Anatma, that Ajnana. We are talking about Dharma Adharma Ajnana. So in Asura Sampat person, they don't know what is Dharma. That is the first problem. We already seen why they don't do, because the desires overpower or we try to justify, all those things are there. So Ajnana. The second one is Moham. Moham is, or Moha, delusion. Moha is basically the result of ignorance. Or basically a person, what is delusion? Thinking dharma to be adharma and adharma to be dharma. That what I do is right because this is what I like and therefore it has to be right, and not going by what Dharma Shastras say. So that is comes to moha. What I like is equal to what is good. That is called as delusion. And this moha will bring our own downfall. So this is the second point. Then the third one is himsa. Doing himsa to others. Not just physical, but also giving sorrow to others, giving pain to others. Mainly using our words or our action or our attitude. So whenever we use words to make others uncomfortable, uh, some people revel in it. Some people want to make the other person uncomfortable by their words, or to make them feel bad, or to make them feel sad, or to make them feel angry, induce them to get angry, or just to create hatred. That is all comes under himsa. As I said, some people do that for fun, as starting of fun, and then it becomes habit. And whether it is for fun or whether it is a habit, it becomes himsa, and therefore it becomes papa. So these are the three main ones. What are they? Ajnanam, moha, himsa. Now there are further that were listed. We will go one by one. Asaucham. Asaucham we know, being impure, unclean. And when it comes to cleanliness, we know purity or cleanliness, there are bahya as well as antara. External purity as well as internal purity. So we'll have to ensure that the surroundings have to be kept clean. Our body has to be kept clean. Every day we'll have to shower. The words has to be clean. The mind has to be clean. So those are the things that we have to be aware of. Asaucham. Then the fifth one is anachara. Anachara means we saw religious indiscipline. Waking up early in the morning, brushing our teeth, lighting lamp, those are all achara. Immediately taking shower, eating after the shower, wearing new clothes, as in washed clothes, respect for food, doing the regular prayers, doing whatever has been given as your nitya karma, respect for books, respect for paper, all those things. Annalakshmi, Saraswati, Dhanalakshmi, all those things are needed. These are all called achara. So religious indiscipline, being uncultured, there is no civic sense. That is called as anachara. Then the sixth one is asatyam. Asatyam means falsehood. So telling lies. For some, lies will come naturally. And for them to speak the truth, then there should be something in it for them. Otherwise, they will not even speak the truth. There is no need to speak the truth unless there is something to gain. There are people like that. So, asatyam. Asatyam is sixth. So, ajnanam, moham, himsa. 3. Then we saw asaucham, anacharaha, asatyam. 6. Then anishwaram jagat. These people don't believe in Ishvara. There is no Ishvara in this. Their philosophy is atheist or agnostic, whatever you can call. Then kamaha. Kamam is desire. And when we are talking about desires, as I said, when we discuss desires, we are not talking about moderated dharmic desires. We are not talking about moderated dharmic desires which are attained through dharmic means. We are talking about adharmic desires or adharmic means or selfish desires. Those come under kama, desire. Then krodham. Krodham is what? Anger. When desire does not get fulfilled, it manifests itself as anger. And what we have to understand is, whenever we get angry, we have to realize, or we have to correct ourselves, saying that we are now an asura. So we'll have to correct ourselves. That is 9. So 10th one, lobham. Lobham, we saw greed. The inability to share, non-sharing attitude. When does it come? When a desire gets fulfilled, when we are able to attain what we want, whatever we attain, whatever we get, we do not want to share. So it comes out of desire. Lobham. So we've seen 10. Now the 11th one, Chinta Paratvam. We saw Bhagavan saying Chintam Aparimeyam. Chintam Aparimeyam is basically anxiety, that confusion. Anxiety or confusion that we have and for an asura, he will have it Aparimeyam at all times until death. There is always this confusion, always this anxiety. Life is never peaceful. That is for an asura. Then 12th one is Manitvam. Manitvam, we saw that Garva, superiority complex. Pujyatva Bhava, thinking high of oneself. Whether that person has the quality or not, they will feel superior about themselves. And what kind of superiority we talk about? Dana, Mana, Mata, Anvitaha. Dana, Mana, Mada, Anvitaha. Mata. So that is thinking high of oneself on the basis of, the money that I possess, the wealth I have, the studies that I have, the education I have, the family background that I have, the qualification that I have, the lineage that I am from, the jati that I am born into. All these things are manitva. Dambam, next one. Dambitvam is basically bragging, boasting about what we have, being pretentious, showing off in clothes, showing off using the jewelry that they have, showing off using the words, showing off with behavior. All this called dambam. Then finally 14th one is Atmastuti Paratvam, self-praise, talking about oneself alone to others, talking that I did this, I did that. It's called as self-praise, Atmastuti. And Bhagavan had given a lot more, but these 14 we can summarize. And he gave only some examples. He did not list out. Bhagavan basically gave some examples of an asura sampat. What we can do is we can also do a research, or we don't need to do a research. If we reflect what we are doing at every few moments, what I did in the last half an hour, if I start reviewing my actions, my attitude, my words, my behavior, my thoughts, we will be able to identify a lot of these asura gunas, what is in our personality, and be able to remove them. So these are the ones that Bhagavan gave as asura sampat from 6 to 21. Then in 22 he basically, Bhagavan said what was the phalam, benefit if someone does give up all the asura gunas. Asura sampat tyaga phalam, that was given in 22nd sloka. And Bhagavan said, what is the phalam? He said, 1, calm mind, 2, sukham, then the third is moksha. In 23 he said basically Asura Sampat, if we have, what will happen? He gave 3. He said na siddhim, na sukam, na param gatim avapnoti. There will be no happiness. So we will have money, but if we have money, and if there is also, suppose a person has money, but this person also has jealousy, then what is the use of money? There will be no use of money, because the jealousy will not make him feel happy. So na sukam. Or if the person has greed, lobha, he has got it, but he is not happy, he wants still more. How will he be happy? He will not. Or if the person has money, if he's got anger inside him, how can he be happy? Not happy. So na sukha, na chitta shuddhi, na siddhim. Na siddhim means na chitta shuddhim. No clean mind, no purity of mind. Without that, we are not qualifying ourselves to become a jnani. We are not qualifying ourselves for jnana yoga. And then finally, na param gatim, no moksha, no liberation. We will always be in samsara. That was in 22-23. And then in the final shloka, 24th shloka, Bhagavan uses an important phrase. This is very important that we should remember at all times. He says, Tasmat Shastram Pramanam. Tasmat Shastram Pramanam. For what? Te Karya Akarya Vyavastitau. What is to be done, what is not to be done, what can I act on, what should I not act on. Only Shastram is the Praman. Shastra will be our source of knowledge. It will be the instrument for recognizing do's and don'ts, not our likes and dislikes. He says, follow Shastras, get elevated, do good to yourself. If you follow Shastras, you will do good to yourself. So with that, he ended chapter 16. The last sloka, chapter 16, Bhagavan uses the word pramanam. That, and then pramanam means shastram pramanam. Then it means what? One needs to have shraddha. Shraddha on shastras. Then Arjuna actually gets a doubt on shraddha. So he asks a question on shraddha, which becomes the chapter 17. So 17th chapter deals with all shraddha. And therefore the chapter 17 is called as Shraddha Traya Vibhaga Yoga. But anyway, for us, we will go back to chapter 1. So we have finished chapter 13, those 5 slokas, chapter 16. Now we will go to chapter 1. We will go to the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. We will give some introduction and then start doing chapter 1 onwards. So with that, I'll conclude the 16 chapter summary. Just to open up for any questions or comments. We'll close. Hari Om. Anybody wants to say anything or questions or comments?
Ashish ji has raised his hand.
Ashish ji, please.
Thank you, Guruji. Guruji, actually, the question that I have, which I think is at the top after going through a lot of these sessions, that these Manushi or Asuri Sampati that we talk about, at least 4, if not 5 of them, are kind of integral to the way we behave in today's corporate world where most of us are spending time. For example, if you're working in an organization, you need to establish yourself. And in establishing yourself, self-praise becomes the central requirement to establish yourself. Then, if you are a leader, you need to be assertive, and that assertive behavior very easily becomes, I should say, contaminated with a couple of these asuri sampats for sure. For example, you can get angry and sometimes reacting to the performance of your juniors or your peers. You can you can get affected by so to say a higher self-worth for yourself than maybe your juniors and your peers. So that self-praise again comes in over there. I feel that it's extremely difficult in your, career, so the work that you're doing, to stay away from some of these asuri sampattis. And that is always a big question mark in my mind as to how to, purify myself, both externally and internally. And that was a question I wanted to just pose to you, simply because, work is probably a place where we spend far more time than we spend at home or with ourselves.
Okay. So one of the things that Bhagavan says is, do all, I mean, not here though, once you come to chapter 2 and chapter 3, Bhagavan says, do everything as karma yoga. So there are actions, duties that you have to do as an employee, as an employer, as a colleague, as a boss, as a subordinate. These are all duties. One cannot get away from those things. So you will have to do those duties, but he gives some techniques to actually perform those duties. In the technique is called karma yoga. What is karma yoga? Karma yoga is basically samatvam yoga uchyate. That is called as, that is the definition of karma yoga. Samatvam. Samatvam in the sense of samatvam in terms of likes and dislikes. What we have to do, generally we try to do the duties that we like. We generally tend to avoid the duties that are given to us but that we don't like. So he says, don't do that. Samatvam. Have no likes or dislikes. Do whatever as you are supposed to do. Then when it comes to success or failure, he says,
Guruji, can I just slightly interrupt on that? At the same time, we are told that we will do the best if we do what we love. So how to differentiate between focusing on doing what we love versus doing what is required of us? I mean, how do we define what is required of us and stay, equal in terms of our commitment to our likes versus dislikes if they are part of our job?
Yeah. So that if you listen to the, okay, we've been doing chapter 2 and 3 in especially chapter 2, 48, 49 in the other class. So if you see, okay, let me finish this, then I think you will have the answers as well. So when we are talking about doing our duties without likes and dislikes, whatever is supposed to be delivered by us, whatever is supposed to be done by us, we do it. And we understand this is our duty. The problem for us is many a times we do not see them as duties, we do see them as actions, and whether I would like to do it or not. That's the first thing. Then the second thing is, once I do a duty, whatever be the result, again samatvam yoga uchyate, whether it is success or failure, I take it in my stride. Neither do I get the success get into my head, nor do I let my failure depress me, deject me, or make me angry. So that is the samatva second part. Then the third part is, when I do a duty, it is actually a right to somebody else. What is my duty is a right by somebody. What is the duty as an employee becomes the right of the employer. What is the duty of a subordinate becomes the right of the boss. What is the duty of a boss becomes the right of the subordinate. So the duties and rights go together in our when we look at it deeply. So, and then there would be a time when the person would have to reciprocate. What I do as my duty to the other person becomes the right of the other person, and they have to do another action which is probably becomes my right. Bhagavan here too says Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. He says do not, where here Samatvam Yoga Uchyate means accept whether they do it back or not, whether you get the benefit or not, whether you are being acknowledged or not, you do it without any precondition that the other person will have to do it, or I will not be happy if the other person does not acknowledge. Don't do that. This is Karma Yoga principle to be applied on the duties. Now we are talking about office environment. An office environment, I would say everything comes under duties. We are not talking about any desire driven actions here. So if we take the desires out of it, and if we perform these duties according to these three principles, which is I will do whatever is supposed to do without likes and dislikes. I will not let the success or failure get into my head or drag me down. I will not be dejected or angry if I am not getting acknowledged or if I am not getting this. This is how, if we continue to do, we can see that there would be no pressure on us to be doing Atmastuti, self-praise. We will not be focusing on, we will not even get angry. If there is a problem, if there is an issue, we focus on the issue. If there is a punishment that needs to be given because we are a boss and somebody has done a mistake, we do give the punishment without getting emotionally impacted by it, without getting our maybe a element of anger, an element of hatred, or an element of nothing to get in the way, because we should be seeing this as duties. Now why does Bhagavan say that all these three things, do accept it, do not focus on the results, do not focus on whether the other person is able to acknowledge or do things in return? Because in chapter 2, Shloka 47, Bhagavan basically clearly calls out Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma paleshu kadachana. He says you have a right on all the actions, but you do not have any right on the results. If there are no, I do not have any, this is the law, this is the fact of life, this is the law of this world, that I have a right, I have all the right in the actions that I do. I can decide whether I can do the action or not do the action, or do the same action differently. It is all well within my rights. But once I have performed my action, the results of the action, it is not in my hands. Whether it is success, whether it is a failure, it is not in my hands. Because if it is not in my hands, then I have to better accept it. I have to better accept whether it is success or failure. I don't need to get angry or agitated because that is not in my hands. If something is not in my hands, why should I bother about it? Action is in my hands. Now, how do I do the best? You are asking me, how would I do an action if I don't love it? Bhagavan says, if you don't really love the action, you can use another technique called Ishvara Arpana. Basically, do that action as if you are doing it for me. Suppose if you have an Ishta Devata and you say, okay, I am doing it for you. I am not doing this for this person. I am not doing it for others. I am doing it for you. Then if I am doing it for my Ishta Devata, I would do it properly. Not only that, when we say I should not get affected by success or failure, success we may not be that dejected, or that it will not affect us emotionally, but a failure will definitely impact us emotionally. When we do something and if we are not getting the result, basically because when we start doing the action itself, we have this mind that this is what I want to achieve, and then therefore we do this action. And if we are not able to get that result, the desired output out of it, we get dejected, we get angry, we try to find faults either within ourselves or in the system or with others. If only the other person had not done this, or if only the system was better, or if only I had put in the effort properly. Bhagavan says, last point, he picks up the last point, he says, if only you had put the effort properly, the failure will not impact you. Because even if you get failure, you can say, at least I had put my full effort. Doesn't matter. I had put my full effort. Anyway, the results are not in my hands, but at least I can be satisfied that I had put my full effort. Because if not, then I could always have felt doing the action was in my hands. If only I had put proper effort, maybe the result would have been different. So therefore, we would put in proper effort, we would be properly committed to it. Talking high of oneself, putting saying that I did this, I did that. Unfortunately, in the corporate world, if we have to do it, it is left to the individual whether they want to do it or not. According to the Shastras, if we do it, it will generally drag us down. It will drag us down because we will start thinking high of ourselves. We will be getting away from spirituality. But suppose if we are saying, this is what if we are being true to ourselves, saying that I have done this project, and being truthful to oneself, I had delivered these things, I had done that, without bringing our without getting this a feeling of superiority complex within ourselves, but just stating the facts, then it should be fine. Suppose if we are going for an interview and somebody says, what did you do? Then these are things I did. And if we are true to ourselves without trying to oversell ourselves, without trying to exaggerate things, then that should be fine. That will not drag us down. Because that was a pointed question asked, and we are answering to the point and being true to oneself. But if somebody feels, if I do these things, I will not be able to survive in the corporate world, this is how life is, then I refer back to the same thing that what I said in the last class, that 4-point program that we normally use. First of all, we deny that we actually did exaggerate. The second, even if we agree, we'll say, yes, I was forced to exaggerate because otherwise I will not be able to survive, or this is how it is. Third thing, we'll say, in this world, everybody has to exaggerate. Otherwise, you cannot survive. This is how the world is. Otherwise, you are a fool. So, we'll try to figure out, or we'll try to say, or we'll try to justify our actions. But if we are trying to be true to ourselves, if we are answering pointedly and only looking it as a duty that has been given to me, and I am doing this duty, I don't worry about the results will take care of itself, then we don't need to worry about this. Because irrespective of whether we worry about the results or not, the results are not in our hands. That is the truth. I don't know, Ashishji, whether I answered your question, but this is what Bhagavan says, this is what Gita says.
No, it surely helps. It's more of my discovery and my lack of knowledge that I keep asking these kind of questions. They help me move a few steps ahead. So thank you so much.
No worries. Any other questions or comments from anyone? Okay, now we'll close this class here. Next week could be quite difficult for me to have the class, but I'll keep you posted in the WhatsApp group, because I'm in the middle of shifting house here. So it could be difficult for me next week, but I'll keep you posted in the WhatsApp group.
Sure. Thank you.
Om Purnam.
Hari Om Bhagat.
Hari Om. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Hari Om Sri Guru Thank you.
Hari Om.